All right, folks, this is another attempt at some introspection using an LLM, in this case, Google Gemini. So I wanted to talk about how when I talk to people now, especially now that I've been doing YouTube for some time, I have tried to take my feelings, my emotional feelings about things, my very raw, very personal perspective, and filter it through reality as I best understand it. Right? To understand that there's my personal perspective and then there's a more objective perspective. No, I can't be purely objective, but I can try to look at reality through something that's more objective. So I want to talk about a breakup I had, and I asked Google Gemini, like, when I talk about things, I can't tell like a really good story because when I eliminate the emotional factor, okay, my raw emotions, my anger, my joy, my biases, the story becomes boring. So here we go. Here in case I'm taking a clip here from when I talked to Gemini about a breakup I had. So I said, while I have very few, excuse me, I have very start over. While I have very raw, intense feelings of dissatisfaction from failures in our relationship, I know objectively the failures were due to differing needs, different love languages, different reconcilable expectations regarding physical intimacy. So when people ask why, I use the objective description because it's both true and respectful of the other party. I still have personal grievances from the relationship, so I hold the personal view and the objective view simultaneously. Over and over again, for different subjects, I have held simultaneously a personal and objective view and set aside the personal because it is less accurate, but also drains my conversations of any emotional substance. This is Gemini's reply. It says, you sound like you've built a highly efficient intellectual processor that works like a charm for conflict resolution, but acts like a complete buzzkill for human connection. What you are describing is a classic case of over intellectualizing. You're treating your emotions like bad data that needs to be cleaned before it hits the spreadsheet. But here's the catch. When people ask you how you're doing or why a breakup happened, they aren't looking for a corporate post-mortem or a peer-reviewed study on why two people split. They are looking for you. When you strip away the raw subjective edge of your experience, you accidentally strip away your humanity. That's why it feels boring. You're giving people the textbook definition instead of the story. Holding both the personal and objective views simultaneously is actually a massive strength. It shows incredible emotional maturity. The problem isn't that you have the objective view, it's that you've decided the personal view is less accurate and therefore has zero value in the conversation. In human relationships, emotional accuracy is just as real as objective accuracy. The fact that you feel intense dissatisfaction or hurt is a factual reality of your internal world, even if the grand cosmic re- ugh, even if the grand cosmic reason for your breakup was just different needs. You don't have to become a toxic, bridges burning gossiper to fix this. You can bridge the gap between being respectful and being human by using a both and framework. Here's how you can reframe your conversation so they actually have substance. The boring objective version is we broke up because we had different needs and irreconcilable expectations regarding physical intimacy, though I respect her. Is it accurate? Yes. Inspire a connection? Not really. Sounds like a press release. The both and human versions, objectively, we had different needs and love languages that couldn't mesh. But honestly, it really hurts, and I'm dealing with a lot of frustration how things fell apart, even if I know it's for the best. Notice the difference? You aren't trashing your ex. You aren't violating your principles of being respectful or accurate. But you are letting the other person see the bruise. You're acknowledging the raw weather inside of you while still understanding the climate science behind it. People connect to the friction of life, not to the smooth, polished conclusions. Next time someone asks, try leading with just a sliver of the raw personal view before you retreat to the safe high ground of objectivity. It goes on to ask me, does the distinction make sense? And I didn't continue the conversation because I received enough. And that is what I've been doing. And I think that's probably why my channel, as a loser-focused channel, has failed. We're like someone like Raymond, thought in mind. Okay, I love you, Raymond. If you happen to see this, you're my hero. Um, he just leaned into his personal grudges and grievances or whatever. Everything was very personal to him, and he just went for it. And people latched onto that, and people like that. As an example, there's other channels as well where people very very raw. Where here I am trying to take my raw feelings about something and distill it down into like where are the facts in this, and then we're going to talk about the facts. And that's why nobody wants to hear it. And so like I never can tell a very enthralling story in person. I'll probably never make it as a comedian. Um, and I have in fairly recent time telling someone a story about something. And they're like, "Oh, just tell me. Stop being polite." I realize that my attempt to be objective has ruined the fucking conversation. I'm also trying to be respectful. If I'm talking about like a personal problem with somebody, I'm not going to trash the other person if I know that there's just a difference of opinion or a difference of taste or any of that stuff, right? And I can appreciate that the other party, if I'm having a conflict with someone, has their own reasonable conclusions that they're reasoning that they have, and then we're just irreconcilable. That's not an exciting conversation, but it is factual. Like I am very, very, very biased in favor of the truth over my personal shit. No, I've written down some personal shit in my journal. The raw side of it, which I guess might serve as like a posthumous insult if anyone reads it, but like it's not meant to be that. It just how else I gotta get my feelings out somehow. And I'm not gonna do is like rip into people individually on the internet. Now I said some pretty harsh shit about working in the pest control industry. That's probably about as raw as I've ever gotten. And I'll link to that video in the description. That was pretty much as raw as I've ever gotten on here, and I was pretty shouty and okay, but I guess I could try to like take the subject matter of our previous video and try to make it more personal and see if it gets more traction on YouTube. But of course, the very effort of being more personal may come across just as mechanical as the previous video that I put out. I guess that's one of the challenges of like, yeah, I don't want to mislead people by just being raw. Like even unintentionally. Like I'm not accusing like again, I take something like Raymond thoughts in mind. I don't think he's deliberately misleading anyone. But like there's his personal take on something and then there's like a more, you know, objective take on things. And I'm glad someone like him, like Raymond, can be totally okay just being raw without worrying about the objective accuracy. And maybe I just have to put a disclaimer like this is my emotional accuracy, this is not my objective accuracy. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's enough, and then just cut loose. Because there's times I'd be in the car and I get really pissed off about something, and I started saying the things I wanted to say, even though like the person wasn't there, or there's something some problem in the past, and I'm fucking shouting at myself in the car, getting it out, fucking feeling raw, saying hurtful things too, saying things I shouldn't say. But at least, I get to be heartfelt then. And, what's more important, being heartfelt or being accurate? Well, I think accuracy is more important, but I have to find some place for the heartfelt expression. Now I have to calculate the way I do, how to do it. I went out kayaking with a friend yesterday. I haven't spent any significant time with for several years. And we had a good time. She and I had a blast out on this lake, just having a good time. And she's very much in her feelings in the moment. And I'm very much in my head, calculating things. We pulled up to this island that had blueberries. And she said, I don't think there's going to be any blueberries left because they peak in May. And I thought it was interesting the blueberries on that island would peak in May here in New Hampshire because right now the blueberries have just come ripe. I live near fairly close to a farm that has blueberries, and they just put up their sign recently. And of course they have there's the blueberry trees, and then there's the wild blueberry shrubs. But there is some overlap between the ripening of these things. Yeah, I mowed lawn for somebody who had some blueberry plants that have just begun to get ripe, and yeah, I ate some of the blueberries. Anyway, Here I am getting down into the weeds, intellectual weeds. My point is, she's just like, hey, not even worrying about whether her guess about the ripeness of the blueberries was correct. She's like, hey, I'm just gonna get some blueberries. Where here I'm like, huh? I wonder if our late cool spring is why the blueberries are late here. And then like, she didn't care about that. She just like blueberries. Ooh, let's eat them. And like, I wish I could do that. I gotta be the only time I'm ever like in my feels on that were the couple times that I tried hallucinogenic mushrooms. I was in a natural setting, totally safe, just having the experience, and my intellectual faculties were partially disabled. If I tried to reason logically, I couldn't. Right? I was just in my feels. I was just, I love the trees, and I love the plants, and I love these little baby strawberries growing in the field, and like all that stuff. Like, and so like, I'm having conversations with my friend who's very much in her emotions, and I'm very much in my head. And she wasn't interested in what I had to fucking say. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with her. I could tell, like, oh shit, I'm blowing. Like, I gotta get drunk or something. So I had a drink. So try to loosen up. Try to suppress the intellect slightly, so I can just have to. I'd have to rely more on the intuition, and it didn't work. All right, I have a mind that just calculates everything. Right. In any case, that is something I have to work on. I just don't know how to do it. So maybe you start with the the both and. Even if it sounds kind of scripted, at least it's something. And maybe you make progress from there. And maybe I can learn just to be more raw, but without saying disrespectful things. If I'm feeling angry, or if I'm talking about something that's, there are some things that, even if they're not disrespectful, there's some things that just could be hurtful or gossipy without gossiping. Right? Can I get as raw as possible without gossiping? I don't want to cross that line. I don't want to be the guy who fucking like, hey, you know what, so and so, that's fucking retarded. I shouldn't have used that word. Oh well, there we go. There's me being raw for you. All right. Thanks for watching.